Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody.
This is Giants Amongst Us.
Now, here's a little story I got to tell.
How's everybody feeling? How you doing? Welcome back. Hopefully this finds you in good spirits. I'd like to give a shout out to Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Nigeria, Ireland, the Philippines, UK, and all over the US. I've seen a lot of hits, visits, and people from those parts and places tuning in. So hopefully these stories, these experiences have in some way been of value to you. Today we're going to pick it up right where we left off with Clarence sharing his story with us. So for anybody tuning in for the very first time, you can check out the first half of this conversation. That way you can listen and hear Clarence's story in its entirety. So without too much extra filler leading up to the second part of our conversation, let's just jump right back into it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is part 2 of Clarence and his story.
Probably a lot of the stuff that really messed me up as a child was like in the middle. Like I told you I was raped. Geez, there's just like a lot of stuff. I had 3 teachers that were just absolutely terrible to me. Well, one teacher wasn't really that bad. I would say she's more incompetent. Okay, never mind. I think it was 4 teachers and one was just really incompetent. I asked her because I really wanted to be like an author, because I was really inspired. I really wanted to be like a great dungeon master, like a professional dungeon master. But that job never existed at the time. And so my brother told me just to learn how to be an author. I came up to her and I asked her how to be an author. And she didn't see any potential in me. And she said, "I'm sorry, honey, but people like you can't become an author. People like Kelly, another student in the class, do. You can be like a factory worker or a construction worker." And I was like, dang. Another teacher, I'm pretty sure like she had antisocial personality disorder. I don't know exactly what disorder, but she was what a lot of people would call like a sociopath. She legitimately like bullied the crap out of me. I had like a lot of PTSD whenever people like whisper in my ear, like it would send me the PTSD flashbacks, and she would send the other students to whisper in my ear and do a lot of terrible things to me.
These are teachers.
Yeah.
So what is this, like in elementary school?
Yeah. My first teacher, the first teacher I talked about was like my first grade teacher. I'm pretty sure it was my third grade teacher. It was either like the third or the fourth grade teacher. But I think my third grade teacher was the second one I talked about. My fourth grade teacher was the one that, you know the show The Big Bang Theory?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So just to point this out, the character Sheldon Cooper.
Let me see. Okay, just explain which one, because I don't know them by name, but I know if you give me a description or.
So Sheldon Cooper is like the best way I can point out. He's the weird one. Like Leonard is more of like the straight man in comparison to Sheldon, that's just off the wall bonkers.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I know which one you're talking
So I honestly don't understand exactly what happened, but if you look at Sheldon's behavior, he's what you would call in the past someone with Asperger's, or currently after the reclassification of Asperger's but just becoming autism, he would be autistic. And so about that time, I was born in 1999. I went into the school a year later because I was past the cutoff day. So about that time is when the show came out. Probably like it was either like just came out or a year into coming out. The teacher saw the show and saw my behaviors, and she thought I was acting like Sheldon as a joke. But the thing is I was legitimately expressing myself, and she pulled me aside and she said, "Hey, honey, I know that you're acting like Sheldon and you think it's funny, but they're not laughing with you. They're laughing at you." And I was like, who the hell is Sheldon? I had never seen the show before.
You didn't even know who he was at the time.
And like I told her that, and she just said, "Honey, you don't have to lie to me. I know you're acting like him. There's no way someone would actually act like this." And that show really messed me up as a kid because my teachers saw there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Something not normal. And they just assumed it was because of that show, that I was just acting abnormally. And that situation, like you talked about earlier that you believe like in freedom of speech. I believe in freedom of speech and freedom of expression as well. I have no problem with like people making fun of me being autistic on a TV show. But if you do that and you don't say this person has a medical condition, like we're making fun of this guy with autism, you're not making fun of the condition. You're making the condition a joke, and people aren't going to understand that people legitimately deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
And that just really messed me up as a kid. Like that stopped me, I think, from getting an autism diagnosis when I was a kid. And that would have been life changing for me. And that show, I think, has just done so much damage to the autistic community that it's just insane to me that no one like talks about it or cares. Or like it just feels like they don't care because they just laugh at it.
That's insane that you would have now, okay, and not even to say that that's even cool because a teacher is like they're there to especially children, like these are young children with impressionable minds. They're still developing, forming, molding, like all of these things. But for say you have one teacher doing this, but the chances of you having year after year a teacher,
that's like really the worst part is that when you're autistic, when you're a kid, a lot of stuff that is just natural and like you understand, like you have a feeling of socially like right or wrong when you're a neurotypical person. We just don't have that. And so we go into those social situations and people can legitimately take advantage of us and abuse us in ways that they can't with most people, because most people kind of have a sense of when they're being taken advantage of. But like a lot of the way people interact is just so completely foreign to me. I have a lot harder of a chance of detecting that. And so it's so much easier for people to try to abuse me.
All of
like
these
that.
subtle nuances and things that are
just like to close the book. My gym teacher from 7th to 8th grade, he was probably one of the worst teachers I ever had. The guy, I was morbidly obese. I have asthma. He would run me to the point where like I would like legitimately feel like I was about to die. He actually, so at the end of the year, at the end of my 8th grade year, he told me that he like we just by chance met up in the hallway by ourselves, and he stopped me and he said, I'm the one who told those guys to like ask one of the high schoolers to come to your house and to bully you. Like I'm the one who gave them that idea, and I knew about it and I didn't say anything. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, the guys, he saw when they pushed me down the stairs, he didn't do anything. I'm pretty sure he tried to push me down the stairs, but I just caught the railing because I was already used to, some people trying to push me down the stairs at that point.
Wow.
He generally told me that everything I had accomplished up to this point in my life was just luck, and that it was all going to go away in high school, and that I should just kill myself, just straight up end my own life, because I was just going to be burdened on the people who I loved, and that they didn't deserve that. That I was going to, that if I didn't, I would just, accomplish nothing in my life. I would just live the rest of my life in my mother's basement. Ironically, I live in my mother's basement. He was right about that. But that guy was just terrible. And I realized later in my life that the reason why he did that was like 2 reasons. One was that I had more muscle than him. Like the guy, I don't mean to be rude to people who can't develop muscle, but the guy was what you would call skinny fat, where he just couldn't put on weight. He couldn't put on muscle. And another reason was like, this beautiful 7th grader or like 8th grader, I guess at that point, as beautiful as like a 13-year-old can be, she liked me, and he didn't like that like, this beautiful woman was giving me attention. And so he just bullied the crap out of me.
This is a grown adult.
Yeah. But he just has...
And you're in 7th grade.
Yeah, I mean, when he gave me that talk, it was at the end of my 8th grade year. But she started liking me at 7th grade, and that's when it started. It just crescendoed when I was an 8th grader. And the worst part is, like, years later, I reported that guy to the school. I don't think anything was done about it. That's just how it is.
Was this at the same school?
Yeah.
Because I know some schools are separate. When you go to elementary school to when you go to middle school, it's a different school. But all of these years was at the same school with these different teachers?
Yeah. I forget if it's still something that happens in America, property taxes from an area goes to the school. And so that makes it so that,
Yeah.
areas like more wealthy areas, they get more school funding than poorer areas. And that just makes it so like the teachers are underpaid, everything's just trash. And so only teachers that aren't really good at their job go to those schools. And so those children that need more support are given less support and given lower qualities of teachers.
We can go on a whole different run with this one, but then how that affects the later years in life to where now you have these kids that they've spent how much of their time in school, because at that age, you're spending like 8 hours a day in school. You're spending most of the time with the teachers and the school kids than you are with your actual parents or family members. That can really do something to where the later years in life, now you have these once kids who are adults, but they're mentally and emotionally immature and they haven't grown, and that it's just a whole can of worms that opens up after that.
Yeah, it's terrible that the most vulnerable people in our society, the people who are poor and in the poor areas, they're underserved in school because of the way our system is set up to benefit people that come from wealthy families. It's
Yeah.
they legitimately need better schools, not worse schools. I can't say that still happens. I remember reading
Yeah.
a paper like probably like a long time ago. I can't quote exactly when that happened. I remember reading a paper that at least in the past happened. I can't confirm that still happens, but if it does, it's terrible.
Yeah. Well, there's a author. He was an ex school teacher. He has a real good book, and it talks about the whole schooling system from where it comes from, and the a lot of the politics and the corruption that goes behind it. But he gets into real depth, and he has a lot of firsthand experience. He was a teacher for probably over 20 years in New York City, and I think he actually did his resignation the day he received one of the highest certificates and awards for his for being the teacher that he was. And on the stage was when he gave this huge speech, and he was kind of exposing a lot of what he's seen throughout the years, and just really letting it all out there and saying thank you for the award, but I'm resigning, and it's for these reasons. And he has a book, and I can't think of the name right now, but that's a whole other monster right there, whole other beast.
Yeah. I'm really grateful for teachers who are legitimately who who are good at their job. Like if you're a teacher out there and you do good work, I'm really grateful for you.
Hmm. Doing it for the right reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need more of them. We definitely need more of them. I mean, because sooner or later, these kids are all grown up, and they're like, it ends up being just a terrible cycle if things don't change from the root, the grassroots, and these are the kids, the
Yeah,
children.
legitimately. Like whenever you give someone like that a position over children and like a position of power, they just traumatize and they just spread all that hate they have to other people. And it really being traumatized from such a young age is so terrible. Like if you have that frame of reference of good habits, if you get traumatized and really just destroyed as an adult, but if you have that childhood to fall back on, it's so much easier than just whenever you've never learned how to do something correctly. And it's so terrible to actually like have to learn from the ground up how to live.
Yeah.
And people, when they do that to people, when they traumatize children from a young age, they just emotionally stunt them and stop them from really becoming themselves, from really going through the process of personalization and reaching like the end of their psychological development.
Their full
They're just
potential.
stuck in trauma.
Yeah, that's right. And then like in your case, somebody who, if you're not getting it there, and you're not getting it at home either, I mean, that's you have either a child is left to fend for themselves in a sense, and like you were getting it from what some people may say, well, that's an odd source, or how can you be able to but I understand how you're able, your feelings and your companionship that you have with your dog, because animals, I mean, they're very sensitive, and they might not be able to speak the language we speak, but they can certainly feel your emotion. They know when you're sick, when you're down. They can there's even a documentary my wife was watching, I didn't. I caught the end of it, and it was on Netflix, and it was called "My Best Teacher, the Octopus," and it was about a man's journey. He was kind of documenting his life that he led for a year or maybe longer than that, following this same octopus and just watching its growth, how it interacted with different the whole personality and character of this one octopus, from however old the octopus was up until the last days of its life, and just everything that he learned, the emotional bond that he had with this octopus. And some might say, an octopus, how in the hell can you develop a relationship? But it was intense, and he said it was probably the most intimate relationship besides his child, and I don't know if he was married, but that he had with any living creature.
Yeah, octopus. There's some animals I believe they have like sapience. I believe octopus, squids, dolphins. I believe some dogs might. I do know. I believe the average golden retriever actually has a higher IQ than the average person. I think they have like 102 on average, something like that. Which,
Wow.
yeah,
On average.
yeah, the average golden retriever out IQs the average human.
Do you know if those are those considered the smartest dogs?
I believe commonly the smartest dogs are considered the Shiba Inu, a Chinese breed, I believe. No, I think the Shiba Inu might be Japanese. I don't know. It's an Asian breed.
Mm-hmm. And they're considered the smartest?
Shiba Inu will actually teach other dogs how to behave properly. If you only give all of your dogs treats when they all behave correctly, the Shiba Inu will understand that and make the other dogs, well, he'll teach the other dogs how to behave properly, and he'll enforce positive behavior in the other dogs so he gets treats.
So he gets the treat too.
Yep.
I know golden retrievers are smart. Also, the what were the ones they use for rescue? The rescue dog, Saint Bernards. I don't know about IQ level, but I do know they're real good for rescue. You know, so many different dogs with different personalities, and especially if you already have a bond where you're feeding, you're caring for it, and they're going to give you that love and support to the very end. And like you said, this dog was, in a sense, able to bond with you and kind of show you some things that you weren't getting it from anywhere else. And that's kind of what brought you to being able to communicate, verbalize yourself, and to actually socialize with humans.
Yeah. Yeah, he was legitimately like the stepping stone I needed. He was the teacher I needed to help me learn what I need to learn, how to like start where everyone else starts out in their life. Like, to put it in video game terms, most people start out at level 1. Well, when you're autistic, you might start out like level -8. And a lot of people might know how to help people level up from 1 to 2, but not that many people know how to go from -8 to -7. And yeah.
You really worked at it. You're still working at it, and you have some goals, and you have short-term and long-term goals that you're striving for. And I'll put my bottom dollar on it that you're going to get there. You really got the right attitude, the right mindset, and if you don't have the tools, like you said, you find a way to find those tools and make them work for you and use them properly. Knowledge is power, and you're really taking that and running with it.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I was a kid, I didn't really have anything in my life except my mind. A lot of other people, they have TVs, they have, books. I just had my mind and that was, really, bad for me, but it's also in some ways really good for me. It's something I'm grateful for because it helped me really gain like a deep sense of my values and priorities in life. And a lot of my life is about finding that from a young age, having people throughout my entire life just beat the absolute shit out of me until like I was just, in passive suicide mode. And learning how to connect back with that sense of purpose and learning how to once again lead a purposeful life and opening myself up to vulnerability again.
That's the spirit of this show. That was well said. And I mean, I said it once, said it again, but I'm really happy that we were able to connect and you were able to speak some of your piece with us here. Clarence, you have any final thoughts or words you'd like to add before we wrap this thing up?
Oh yeah. So some people, this is a little weird to describe. In Germany, I don't know if they have this, but in America, like the alpha, sigma, beta, omega thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So some people, they'll look at me and they'll be like, "Oh, he's a sigma male," and they'll either like make fun of me or like, I don't identify as a sigma male. Honestly, if you identify as a sigma male, you probably have autism. I don't mean to be like an asshole when I say that, but you look up the symptoms for autism, look up the symptoms for being a sigma male. They're legitimately the same thing. I would say an alpha male is a person that's went through the process of personalization. A beta male is a person that might have gone through the process of personalization and just is more of a follower than a leader. And what you would call an omega male is someone who's been traumatized and needs therapy. And a sigma male is someone who has autism. The research that originally went into classifying those, people into that, well, originally it was dogs, was fundamentally flawed. And you can just read about that. Just read On Wolves. It's a pretty not good experiment. They just took random wolves from random places and put them together. It would kind of be like, basing our understanding of psychology off of Big Brother. Yeah, it's something random to end on, but I want you to understand that. And I guess another thing is, no matter how bad it is in your life, no matter how much it hurts, I promise you that the pain is worth it, that you are worthy of learning how to live a better life, overcoming those habits that are keeping you down. It takes a lot of sacrifice, it takes a lot of pain, but I promise you that it's worth it. I understand that it's hard to know that. It's hard to really like accept that, to legitimately give life another shot when you're like that. But I promise you it's worth it. And if I could give you, how I felt right now, that feeling, I feel like you would feel the same way. And it would be a lot easier for you to really start that journey. And I wish I could give that to you. It really is life-changing. Honestly, even at my worst, the happiest you could have ever given me, you could have given me everything in life that I could have ever wanted. I don't think I would be as happy as I am, even at like my lowest moments today, if that gives you any perspective on how much better it is. So
it absolutely does.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Clarence, for your time, for sharing your story, for your awesome attitude, and all the best on your endeavors and what you set out to do later on in life, and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope you enjoyed listening.
Yes, sir. My man, fighting the good fight. Despite the fact of starting off at a -8, he wasn't going to lean on that like a crutch. He wasn't going to use it as an excuse. If anything, that was all the more reason for him to up his game so that he could live what we would call a normal life. Despite his handicaps or his disabilities, that wasn't going to be the determining factor for him. And throughout the abuse as a child, being bullied and harassed throughout his school years by his peers and even teachers, through all the pain, the hurt, the suffering, in the midst of the firing squad, he kept his course. Though others may have counted him out or doubted him, he banked on himself. Clarence believed in himself, and he put in the work, the effort to change his situation, to better himself as a human being. My hat's off to you. You are, without a doubt, a giant amongst us. And like Clarence mentioned, his line is wide open to anybody who is looking for some support, or they want to talk with someone that they feel is able to relate to their situation. I'm sure he'd be happy to hear from you. Again, Clarence, appreciate you and thank you for sharing your experience with us. Stand tall, buddy. And before this one winds down, if you would like to be a part of the show and share your story, or even the story of someone in your life that has impacted you in a positive way, you can always reach out to me via email. I'd be happy to connect. Until next time, and very soon, peace.
Looking for a sign to know I'm on the right road. Ain't seen no sign since Jericho.